To familiarize yourself with lighting and how it works, I recommend getting the book Color and Light by James Gurney. It covers the basics and advanced theories of light, and it's a must read for every artist out there. And since this is a portrait, I would typically study things like photos that are related to this topic. So you could search for overcast portraits to get an understanding how light works. So an overcast is when there's no direct light hitting the character and everything is soft and there are just ambient occlusion shadows like this. Everything is the light is coming from the top down and it's more smooth and the colors are showing its base color. So if you do studies, when I mean studies, I mean like copying the photos with the same colors, and it helps you get a basic understanding how light works. So you could do it again and again with different pictures until you get a basic understanding. I also recommend movie screenshots and of course other people's artwork. You could do studies before doing your own stuff. I used to do it a lot before, but now I just use a reference on the side instead of doing studies. Now let's go back to my PSD. I organized the layers so it's easier to understand. So the first three layers are just the sketches and old stuff. I make it color red so I don't accidentally turn it on. Then the next is the post layer or VFX. This is just general adjustments like the light bloom and the vignette to make things more cinematic. And the blood is on a separate layer, and the sword, and the hand, and the base. For the background, it's just a soft round. It's just a blurred painting of the window and another light bleed set to color dodge. So when painting the colors, I start off with deciding the mood. And since this is just a fan art, I don't really need to invent anything. I don't need to think that much because I'm just copying whatever mood's in the game already. And I'm just trying to capture the feel. If you're not sure about the mood, you need to think about what kind of emotion you want to convey. Is it happy? Is it sad? Or scary? Or things like that. And that will determine what kind of color you would use, what kind of lighting. So now that I have a mood determined here, I start off with the base layers underneath the line art. And I don't use anything strong. Everything should be just in the mid-tone. There's no pure whites, no pure blacks. Sometimes I need to adjust the layers a bit, the colors. So here I darken the face a bit, and another one to darken everything a bit more. And usually I start with the main lighting. Here it's going to be the rim light, which is set to linear dodge. Since we don't have this is the only direct lighting we have on the character. And the next is the ambient occlusion. This is based on the environment, or in this case I cheated it a bit to make it a bit blue just for some interest. So it's not boring and not all green. And next is the AO layer, which is the shadows in between every part to make things pop out a bit more. And then finally the specular. And there's also another thing after this spec, which is the Fresnel or the reflection. And what that is that sometimes the background can reflect on the edges. Like for example this green on the background, it could reflect on the edge of the hat a bit like that. So it's not really a direct light, but it's sort of like a reflection. This makes things a lot more realistic, and it's super subtle. There are also subsurface scattering, but I didn't use it as much here because I didn't want her to look too human, too warm. So that happens on the edge of light, maybe somewhere here. It gets a bit saturated near the skin. So that means that character has like blood and it's showing a bit through the skin. But I didn't want it here. So yeah, those are the things that you need to take note when coloring the base layer. Once you understand these basic concepts, that it will be easier to play around with different lighting. I used a reference when I'm inventing this rim light effect. So I have a 1/6 head sculpt. Here it is. I took 3 different pictures, and this is the reference for this current lighting. I didn't copy it exactly, especially on the chin part, because it looks a bit too masculine for this. So sometimes you need to change it a bit just for whatever looks better. And the important part here is the details, such as here in the lips. So if you have a toy lying around there, you could use it as a reference, and just a lamp and a toy. Sometimes I even use kids' Play-Doh or clay and sculpt my own stuff just to get the reference for the light. So the face is the trickiest parts to light because of the different planes. Other than the examples I mentioned, you could also use apps like the DAZ 3D, or there are tons of free apps on your mobile phone that can show different kinds of references. I made 2 more photo reference here so that we could experiment with the lighting. This one's a top-down, like a spotlight. Could try it out on this character. So I'll set it to color dodge, and then I'll just use a soft round brush. Maybe there's like a fire nearby and it's hitting her face. I could just match the reference. Something like that. So easy to put lighting in using this method. And you could change it so fast like that. Maybe it's magic instead of fire. You could try out a different lighting, like an underlight. Let's try linear dodge. It looks ridiculous right now, but I'm gonna tone it down later. Yeah. So the difference of linear dodge and color dodge is linear dodge makes everything lighter in value, and color dodge blends it a bit more. So depending on what you want, you could play around with it. And I also recommend playing around with this setting here. Transparency shapes here. Sometimes it looks better if it's unchecked. But right now it really doesn't, so I'm I'll leave it on. So yeah, you could play around with the lighting, keep adding or changing the light until you find whatever's nice, whatever you fits your mood that you want.
Now, that technique works if your light source is colored, but what if you want a neutral lighting? We can use the curves layer and make it bright a bit, and then invert the mask. And now we could paint the shape of the light.
What's great about this is the local colors will retain its hue. Something like that. And I hope that made sense.